At the end of World War II, Germany had been divided into 4 occupation zones which were governed by the victors of World War II: France, Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, with reunification in mind at a later date. But by 1949, it became clear that the Soviets and its Western allies were unable to govern Germany together as a single nation. After the Berlin blockade of 1948, the West set up the Federal Republic of Germany, aka the FRG, in September of 1949. The Soviets responded shortly afterwards by creating the German Democratic Republic, the GDR for short, in the occupation zone of theirs in October of the same year. By 1950, the Socialist Unity Party was in control of most of the government in East Germany, with backing from the USSR. The SED was modeled after the Communist Party in Moscow, and key decisions were made by a small committee of members of the Secretariat of the Politburo. The most important member of this committee was Walter Ulbricht, the party's general secretary, as he ran East Germany with an iron fist as an authoritarian state in a Stalinist manner. The SED consolidated its power through controlling all cultural activities, with the help of the Ministry of State Security, which was created in February of 1950. The SED used mass organizations as well, like trade unions, to spread their message and policies. Non-communist parties were also threatened and forced to join the National Front, a huge national organization which claimed to represent every organization interested in national unity. The National Front then created a list of candidates for the elections of October of 1950. But all these candidates supported the same policies, and therefore the communists, who dominated all these parties, were able to gain control of the government fairly easily. On June 17th of 1953, the citizens of East Germany went on strike against Walter Ulbricht for imposing socialism on their industrial nation. The workers were upset and angered over the state's control of wages, high taxation, and rising food prices. Farmers were also concerned about this, as they feared collectivization and were angry about the low food prices for their products and the high cost to deliver these products. Shortly after Stalin's death in March of 1953, Walter Ulbricht was warned by Moscow to lighten up on his policies. But instead of doing this, he increased work norms by 10%. Then on the 17th, crowds surrounded prisons and party offices en masse and demanded for the resignation of the SED. To contain these masses, Walter Ulbricht called on the Soviets to quell the rebellions. After the revolts, food prices were decreased, pensions increased, and more consumer products were produced. And the Stasi, the secret police, were also made more efficient to prevent any further incidents from happening. Although Ulbricht had little support in Moscow, his position in eastern Germany was saved by the fall of Beria, his main critic in Moscow, and by 1958 he was able to get rid of the rest of his opponents in Moscow and in his own party. Between 1958 and 1959, the German Democratic Republic was in a stable period of time, and the number of refugees that fled towards West Berlin decreased. But because of Nikita Khrushchev's Berlin Ultimatum in 1958, the banning of strikes and the enforced completion of collectivization of farms caused a whole new crisis to unfold, nearly collapsing the East German government. The forced collectivization of farms made food prices skyrocket, and the number of refugees that started to flee to West Germany through Berlin increased drastically. Pressured by Ulbricht, Khrushchev finally agreed to close the East German border in Berlin to prevent East Germany from falling. This allowed Ulbricht to consolidate his power once again and to stay as head of the East German state, which didn't last long afterwards. Finally, on August 13th of 1961, the border between East and West Germany was sealed off. During this time period, the Stasi prevented any further uprisings from happening that would threaten this process. Initially, East and West Berlin were separated by a wire, but as time went on, a wall was built in its place. This wall became the symbol of the division between the East and West during the Cold War. By 1989 to 1990, the Soviets were almost bankrupt in their economy, and its new head, Mikhail Gorbachev, wanted to end the Cold War. The Soviets were therefore unable and unwilling to further intervene in the affairs of the German Democratic Republic. Although many people tried to escape the GDR, others decided to stay and protest for a brand new government to take the place of the SED. On October 9th of 1989, massive peaceful demonstrations took place in Leipzig, and on October 17th through 18th, Erich Honecker, who replaced Walter Ulbricht, was replaced by Egon Krenz, who then opened up the crossing point through the Berlin Wall on November 9th of 1989, and led to the collapse of the Berlin Wall on the same day. On November 13th, Egon Krenz was then replaced by Hans Model, who allowed free elections, which were held on March 18th of 1990. The West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl saw this and took the initiative to unite East and West Germany on October 3rd of 1990. And finally, Germany was reunified.